You ever been told you're too much? It's one of those phrases that just stings, right? It feels like a judgment, like you're being dismissed. But what if being too much for one person is actually the key to becoming enough for yourself and for the right people? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really powerful story about exactly that, about self-worth, love, and the incredible strength you can find in quiet dignity. And it all kicks off with these three little words, a line drawn in the sand. It sounds so simple, but it carries the weight of a final verdict, And it's the catalyst for absolutely everything that's about to happen. So the scene opens up in Ren's apartment, and you can just feel the tension in the air. Look at the two mugs on the desk. One's half full, but the other is completely untouched. It's such a perfect, quiet symbol for a connection that's just not happening. And this moment, it just lays their whole problem bare. For Ren, pulling Jay into his lap while he studies is, well, it's just practical. He literally says it's science. But for Jay, it feels completely different. It feels like his personal space, his boundaries are just being erased. To him, it's not science, it's manipulation. It's a want that's being disguised as a need. And this is where it all just breaks. Jay says that line, "You're too much." And the silence that follows is described as heavy, just suffocating. He walks out, and that connection just shatters, leaving Ren alone with that untouched mug and the echo of his own words. But here's where things get really interesting. After being told he's too much, Jay doesn't shrink. He doesn't make himself smaller. Instead, he starts to define himself, not by what Ren said, but by his own actions. We see his character get forged in three absolutely defining moments. So fast forward a bit, and we find Jay working at this fancy restaurant. And in walks this mafia boss, Mr. Han, who insults him with a really cruel slur in Korean. He just assumes Jay is some invisible server who can't possibly understand him. It's just casual, nasty cruelty. And Jay's response? Wow. It is not what you'd expect. No anger, no yelling. Just two simple, world-stopping words, delivered in perfect Korean. The whole restaurant just freezes. He meets pure hatred with grace, and in that one move, he takes all the power in the room, leaving this big tough guy completely speechless. And that right there is the perfect illustration of dignity. See, it's not about fighting back louder. It's about having a core of self-worth that's so solid that an insult just bounces right off. Jay's quiet strength, his refusal to let someone else diminish him, that is the very definition of dignity. Okay, so that was moment number one. The second defining moment happens in a dark alley. Jay finds this tiny dragon hatchling that's been thrown away because its wings are twisted and its eyes are cloudy. It's seen as defective, as broken, and you can't help but see the parallel, right? It's a creature that mirrors how Jay feels, judged for not being good enough. The powerful Emperor Kael sees the little dragon and basically dismisses it, says it's not going to survive anyway. And Jay replies with this profound line. He's not arguing about whether it will live or die. He's making a stand for the value of a life, no matter how fragile or flawed it is. It's just this moment of radical empathy. And this is where the story really takes a turn. See, Jay's quiet acts have integrity. They don't just define him. They start to send out these ripples, and they begin to change the very people who once judged him or wrote him off. Remember Ren? Well, guess who was in the restaurant and saw that whole thing with Mr. Han go down? And in that instant, he has this massive revelation. What he once called too much in Jafari, he now sees for what it really is: dignity wrapped in silence. He realizes he wasn't just wrong. He completely misunderstood what strength looks like. But maybe the biggest change, the most shocking one, is what happens to Emperor Kael. I mean, his journey is just incredible. He starts as this harsh ruler, looking at the little dragon as just a defect. But then he witnesses Jay's compassion. He hears him, and he transforms from a ruler to a witness, and finally, to a student. I mean, think about this for a second. This might be one of the most powerful lines in the whole story. An emperor, a man of absolute power and fear, humbling himself to a human, and asking to be taught tenderness. It just goes to show how deeply Jay's actions have started to reshape the entire world around him. So all of this brings us right back to where we started, to Jay and Ren. But here's the thing,
They can't just go back to the way things were. They have to build something new, from the ground up on a totally different foundation.
And you can see the change perfectly just by looking at the silence between them. That first silence, it was heavy, right? It was like a weapon in a Cold War. But this second silence, after Jay comes back, it's described as soft and comfortable. It's not built on conflict anymore, it's built on a new shared understanding.
So their reconciliation, it's all about honesty and equality now. Jay comes back and he doesn't pretend the hurt didn't happen, but he also remembers the love. They both admit that underneath it all, they were just scared. And when Ren suggests studying again, Jay doesn't shut him down. He just calmly sets a new boundary. Only if I get the chair. It's a small thing, but it redefines their entire dynamic. They're finally equals.
So, when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway from this whole journey? It's really about how we take all these moments, the painful ones, the powerful ones, and we synthesize them to find out who we really are. You can really track Jay's entire journey through these 3 key phrases. The first one, "You're too much," that's the wound. It's the cut that starts him on this path. The second, "I forgive you," that's the healing. That's his choice to respond to cruelty with grace. And the third, "Let it die loved," well, that becomes his purpose, to show compassion to the things and people that have been forgotten. And that all leads to this, the core idea of the entire story. Jay's final realization. He was never the problem. That label, too much, it was never really about him. It was about the other person's inability to see his value. He was always, always enough for the people who were willing to grow with him. And the final scene isn't just about Jay and Ren making up. It's Jay, Ren, and Emperor Kale all together. This isn't just about fixing a romance. It's about building a whole new kind of family, a community that's formed around those very same principles that Jay stood for: dignity, forgiveness, and tender compassion. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Sometimes those moments when we get rejected for our passion or our intensity or our beliefs, those are the very moments that push us toward the people and the places where we don't have to be less, where we are celebrated for being exactly who we are.